All right, district breakdown time. Our last 6A district, our last district in Houston. As we start looking forward to the beginning of the season, John Poorman's joined me to talk about 24 6A. It looks very similar to last year, except for Deer Park is now in it from the now defunct 22 6A. All those teams kind of spread out all over the place. Deer Park is now in here. It's the way they've played over the last couple of years. They've obviously been a power in 22 6A with all the Pasadena teams, but how do you think they're going to fit in here now with the clear ISD teams and Dickinson, who's always a power down there? Do you think they can get into the postseason, and how do you think they're going to do against some of these squads?
Yeah, Deer Park certainly has a chance to get into the postseason. They've made a habit of that in recent years, and I would expect them to be competitive in this district. As you mentioned, it's going to be more challenging this year. The competition level is going to be raised, I believe, compared to the districts they've been in recent years. But yeah, I mean, Deer Park is a program that's used to winning some games here, and so I certainly think that they can be competitive. And you look at this district, last year, obviously Dickinson led the way. They were 6-0, finished 9-2 overall. Year after year, the Gators are always, in the hunt for district titles, and trying to make some noise in the playoffs under Coach John Snelson, and they've done a really good job. They're just, you look top to bottom at this district, and they're kind of they're somewhat of the gold standard, I think. When it comes to what you want your football program, the consistency to look like. But then you also have, teams like Clear Falls and Clear Springs, two programs that are always solid as well, and always, used to getting into the playoffs. And both of those teams finished 7-5 last year. And so I would expect, this kind of the same thing out of those two programs as well, and competing in this district week in and week out.
Yeah, the Clear Springs, I believe they lost. Didn't they lose their running back Zyshawn Edwards, one of the faster guys out there? Clear
Yeah.
Falls always brings that solid defense and makes things happen there. You look at some of I mean, 2 years ago, Brazzers made it, but their head coach moved on to another school, so they're breaking in a new guy. And then you look at Clearbrook and Clear Lake and Clear Creek. It just seems like the talent goes to the other Clear schools, and they may have a guy or two here. I know Clear Lake had that great defensive back last year, and they had Damani Maxon as well, but it just wasn't enough to push them into the postseason. You see any of those three Clear teams maybe making a push to the postseason, or trying to jump over one of these teams?
Well, you look at Clear Creek, and they finished with the same overall record as Falls and Springs did at 7-5. So they're definitely a team to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, you look at these Clear Creek ISD schools, and Falls is one that, as you mentioned, they always have talent on both sides of the ball. The defense is always pretty good there, and the big challenge for them, I think, is going to be replacing quarterback Landon Vessel, who just this past weekend, as we're talking here, threw for 7 touchdowns in the Bayou Bowl All-Star game down here in Houston. So, he's certainly a senior leader, and at that quarterback position that they're going to have to work out. But yeah, I mean, year after year, these teams are going to have guys they need to replace. But I think the standard that's been set, a lot of these programs is certainly going to keep them in the mix. And then, Clear Creek, like I said, certainly could be in the mix as well. They showed that they could do it last year, and we'll just see how they respond and see if they can use that as a little bit of motivation to push them over the top this season.
Well, we'll see. Boy, this has been fun going through all these districts. And if you think we're done, we're not done. We're coming back next week with one more small little breakdown to talk about which of our Houston area teams may be looking to go 4 or 5, maybe even 6 rounds deep in the postseason. Our way too early predictions on who might come through. So stick with us next week. Me and John will come up with some stuff for you.
Sounds good.